So when we picked up in chapter 2, we have the king now. He is remembering that he has done something with the queen. What did he do? He replaced her. Well, he hadn't replaced her yet. He got rid of the queen. So he realizes Queen Vashti is gone, and so he now is deciding what to do about it. And so all of his officials now are going to have this gathering of all the young women, and they're going to pick a new queen. And so we have all these young women who are gathered up from all around the entire country and brought before the king. And we talked about how they had these beauty treatments that went on for a year, and how they probably were not going to go back home. They were now in the palace, and we talked about how this almost sounds like a Cinderella story. They were, in whatever condition they were in before, now all of a sudden they live in the palace. Well, this is not a wonderful thing. Only one of them is going to become the queen. And we are introduced to the title character of our story, Esther, her Jewish name being Hadassah. And so she is taken into this situation, and we read about how she becomes a favored person with the keeper, Haggai. And she was told by Mordecai to keep her identity as being a Jew secret. So she does this, and throughout this process, we find that of all the women in all the country, who does the king favor? Esther. So not only was she a favorite just with the staff, now the king prefers her as well. So there's something about this young woman that stands out. We don't know exactly what all it is, but we talked about some of the upbringing she would have had. We see some of her behavior. She is living a godly life to the best of her ability, and that is standing out to people. She is making these connections, and she is becoming a favored individual. So she ends up becoming the new queen. Now, Mordecai is sitting at the gate of the palace, and what does he overhear while he's out there? A plot to kill the king. Now, Mordecai is a Jew, and the king is a Persian. And so Mordecai now, he's heard of this assassination plot. He had the option to do nothing. But what did he do? He told. I heard somebody say that. Who did he tell? He told Esther. Right, he didn't go to the king, he went to Esther. And so Esther reveals to the king this plot and ends up saving the king's life. And there is a note put down in the records of the king about Mordecai revealing or uncovering this plot. And it almost seems like a footnote in here. It says, yeah, that was noted down. Well, that's going to become important later on as we read further. Okay, so that gets us caught up on where the story was when we left off. So let's go over now to chapter 3 and pick up anew. Okay, would there be somebody interested in reading for us? How about verses 1 through 6?
I'll read it. Just 1 through 6?
Just 1 through 6.
All right. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the princes who were with him. And all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. And the king's servants who were with the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" And it happened when they spoke to him daily, he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman, Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath, but disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai.
All right, thank you. Perfect. Okay, somebody pick up there about 7 through 12.
In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month of the month of Nisan, the Pur, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and month, and the lot fell on the 12th month, the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, there is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasure. So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. Keep the money, the king said to Haman, and do with the people as you please. Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's satraps, the governors of the various provinces, and the nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I'll finish it out here. It says, and letters were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old women and children, in one day, and the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to seize their possessions as plunder. A copy of the edict to be issued as law in every province was published to all the peoples, so that they should be ready for this day. The couriers went out, impelled by the king's command, while the decree was issued in Susa, the capital. And while the king and Haman sat down to drink, the city of Susa was in confusion. Okay. What happens right here in this short chapter? So first of all, we're introduced to yet another individual that we haven't seen yet. So right here in the very beginning of chapter 3, we have a new person, new prince, new court official that is promoted. And who is this man? Haman or Haman. Yeah, so Haman. We don't know much about him other than here he appears on the scene. So for whatever reason, he is pleasing to the king. The king likes this individual and ends up promoting him. And let's look at his lineage here. He is the son of Hammedatha. And how is Hammedatha described? The Agagite. Oh, that clears it up, right? What in the world is an Agagite? Yeah, okay, perfect. You're right. But who is Agag?
Amalekite.
Yeah, why is that important? Why do we care?
They were not exactly best friends with the Jews. Enemies of the Jews.
They were enemies of the Jews. And what had God ordered happen to them at one point in their history? What were the Israelites supposed to do with them? Wipe them all out. God's command was to wipe these folks out, to wipe out the Amalekites, whose king was Agag. So they should have been eliminated. They weren't. And now who is planning to wipe out the Jews, the descendants of the very people God said you should wipe them out. So we have the disobedience of the Israelites raising its head here later in history. So Haman here is an Agagite, and so he's now been given this tremendous authority. And so the king gives an order. I'm falling behind on my slide here, I'm sorry. All right, so Haman is promoted, and the king gives an order. What does he tell the servants to do? This is in verse 2. Bow down, pay homage. What in the world is homage? Yeah, honor, respect. That's right. So give respect to this individual. I'm promoting him. Everybody is to bow before him. Everybody is to respect this individual. Here's a man of authority. And what does Mordecai decide to do? No, thank you. You're exactly right. Mordecai says, no thanks. I'm not going to bow down before this man. So, Mordecai refuses to bow down. Now, who saved the king's life? Mordecai, who was promoted. All right, so despite having saved the king, Mordecai is not promoted in this situation. Now, we don't know what all was going on here, but for whatever reason, Mordecai was overlooked. And so, blessed people, they're often go unnoticed. So, they did the right thing, but he didn't get real recognition. Remember, it was just kind of a footnote. They wrote down in the records that, oh, this happened, he saved the king. But we didn't read anything about some grand thank you, some big party, some big recognition, some promotion. No, it's just written down on a sheet of paper somewhere or a tablet, scroll, whatever, and they move on. But now Haman has come along, and Haman, who as far as we know never saved the king's life, is now elevated to this big position of authority. So all are then commanded to bow before Haman, and Mordecai has refused. He says, I'm not going to do it. Now it kind of alludes to why. It talks about they ask him, why won't you do it? But it doesn't directly say. Later, it says that basically he's saying, because I'm a Jew, I'm not going to do this. All right. So at first glance, we might look at this and think, well, that makes sense. Of course, he's not going to bow down before Haman. Well, what was it the king had asked them to do? To bow and show what? Respect. Okay? Think about when John sees the angel and bows down before the angel. What did the angel say? Do not do that. Get up. What was John doing? Well, he was also in a way worshiping, right? He's bowing down and giving kind of work. And the angel's like, no, don't worship me. Worship God. Was the king telling the people to worship Haman? Kind of, but he didn't put him in the place of a god. Now, remember when Daniel refused to bow before the idol, that was worship. That's a little different. Mordecai has just been told, give respect to this individual. Do we have any kind of prohibition against respecting authority or people? No. No, Jesus even talks about, give honor to Caesar, give respect, give Caesar what his due is. We see examples in Scripture. Abraham bows before another king. It's okay to bow and give respect, not in a worship sense, but just in a respect sense. So we have to kind of wonder here, is there more going on than maybe what we are told? Was this intended to be a worship kind of thing, and that's why Mordecai is saying no? Or could it just be that Mordecai has decided, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to respect this man. Either are possible. It could be that Mordecai has made this choice, and what did his choice lead to? Well, they're now going to wipe out the Jews. And this may be because Mordecai was just being stubborn. That's a possibility. We're not told they were told to worship Haman. They were told to give respect to Haman. But Mordecai doesn't do it. So there are some scholars that think Mordecai, just through his attitude, provoked the response that happened. Regardless of why he did it, his resistance to the king's command sets a conflict into motion. So all this begins because of Mordecai. Now, how did Haman take this news when he hears that? Not too well. He's mad. Yeah. Now, we keep seeing all these examples of these Persian rulers, and they're just wonderful decision-making skills, right? No, not at all. Over and over and over again, we've seen them make very extreme decisions, strong decisions. We saw the king order this ocean to be whipped. We talked about that. We talked about how there's this dismissal of the queen just because he thinks that, all the women are going to rise up and take over the country because, they don't respect their husbands. They make rash decisions. So Haman is enraged, and he's going to end up building a gallows for Mordecai, but he learns that Mordecai is of what type of people? He's a Jew. He is a Jew. Who also is a Jew? Esther. And the king does not know that Esther is what? Jewish. Do we see the trouble brewing? Things are about to get very, very bad. All right, so we've got a little bit of irony here. We have Mordecai, who has proven himself loyal to the king. He is of an imprisoned race, a dominated race, a conquered race, and he had the opportunity to let somebody bring harm to the king, but chose not to. So he's loyal, but so far, no good has come from that. He has not seen any kind of benefit other than the fact that he did the right thing. So, it's not necessarily a just system. We have Haman, who we see here making very rash, extreme decisions. We have to describe Haman as an evil individual. A man who is just from a slight is willing to wipe out an entire race of people. There's no other term for him other than evil.
I'm not sure that that's uncommon in the time, though. You got to remember, he is the ultimate authority of a massive, and he's got all the power, all the authority, and he's going to wield it.
Absolutely.
And, he's rash, but that's sort of to be expected of someone in his position.
Sure. And you can see how the king reacts to it. The king's like, sure, whatever. The king doesn't even really seem to care. So I think you're onto something. This is almost like an afterthought. Yeah, whatever. You're going to kill a few thousand people. It's It's all right, it's just a Tuesday. You know, what's it matter? Yeah, so he has this tremendous power. So evil thrives in these unjust systems. And we often see, even in today's time, powerful people often go unchecked unless confronted. Nobody stood up before Haman, or at least not yet, and checked this power. So he is going to come up with this horrendous plan. So let's turn here and see what he plans to do. So how does he convince the king to do this? In verse 8, he tells them, there's a certain people that are among your kingdom, and how does he turn the king against them? What does he say? They don't keep the king's laws. All right. Is that true? Yeah, to an extent, it's kind of a half-truth, right? There are certainly Jewish people living in Persia that were lawbreakers, certainly. There was definitely one. What's his name? Mordecai. At least one. So one individual is violating the king's decree. He is violating the king's law. And so Haman is applying that to whom? All of them. He's painting with a huge brushstroke. He's saying, yeah, there's this group of people, they do not listen to you. They do not abide by your law. They're a different people. They're an other people. Well, where did these people come from? Well, they were conquered. They were brought here. So Persia, being a conquering nation, they had conquered the nation that had conquered the Israelites. So Persia, being this conglomeration of conquered people, how many of them in this whole nation were truly Persian? 3. Yeah, a small number. Yeah, 3's oddly specific, but yeah, very few. Yeah, it was mostly a conglomeration of conquered foreign people. Okay? So he's painting this broad brushstroke about these people. And so he tells the king, hey, they don't listen to your laws, so it's not in your best interest to let them stay. Now, he's now playing on the king's desire to stay in power. He's planning this conspiracy idea. You know, if they won't listen to the law, well, what's to stop them from rebelling? And if they are scattered all over the provinces, then if they all rose up at once, that'd be a problem because you have all these people that are scattered across your entire kingdom that are now troublemakers. So whether they can overthrow the king or not, the king doesn't want that headache. He don't want to deal with that. He's got better things to deal with than an insurrection. And do you think he trusts Haman? He must. He just promoted him above all of his other officials. So for whatever reason, the king trusts and respects the opinion of Haman. So Haman is coming in here and twisting the truth and manipulating the king. And so he's also now trying to put this idea that this might be a good idea from the king's perspective. He says, if it pleases the king, hey, here's an idea. But if it pleases the king, why don't we take care of this? How about there be a decree that they be destroyed, and he sweetens the deal? What does he say he'll do?
He gets the money.
He's going to give money. He's like, yeah, let's wipe these people out, and you know what? King, I love you so much. I'm going to pay my own money to help make this happen. I'm going to pay for it. Well, where did he probably get a lot of this money to begin with? Yeah. So here we have this individual who is going to pay so the king can be safe. Now, Mordecai has already saved the king's life. Haman is trying to make it look like he's saving the king, either his life or his kingdom or the stability of his kingdom. All right, so the king takes his signet ring, he gives it to Haman, and he says, okay, here, take silver, take people, do as you please. All right, so they summon the king's scribes, and they go out and they write this command. Now, what have we already learned about the laws of the Persians?
They're written in stone.
They're written in stone. Yeah, once they make a law, they can't unmake the law. There's no repeal of the law. So for him to have the king make this law, this decree, is problematic. All right, so they reach out to the governors, and they now have this script, and it's written in multiple languages. Why is that important? Well, because it's all these conquered people. It's not one cohesive nation. It goes out so that everybody in all the provinces can read this law. And it's sealed with the king's seal. All right, so they go out, and they're going to wipe out all of the Jews, young and old, and it's going to happen on a specific day. So imagine now being a Jew living in this time, and the new law comes out from the king, and the law is, hey, we're going to kill all the Jews on this day that's coming up. What did they do to provoke that? Well, as far as they know, nothing. Most of them have no idea even who Mordecai is, let alone that Mordecai wouldn't bow before Haman. All of a sudden, there's just this grand law, hey, we're going to kill the Jews next week. Can you imagine living in that society where that all of a sudden is the decree? And so here in verse 15, how does it describe the mood in the city, in the capital city? Confusion, perplexed, right? They don't know what's going on. Why in the world have the Jews who have been living here, are the Jews a new arrival? No. Certainly not. They've been here around 100 years at this point. So all of a sudden your friends, your neighbors, the Jewish people who you've grown up with, they've always been there. All of a sudden we're going to kill them all off. There's great confusion among the people. But that's all right. How are the king and Haman handling this? They're going to have a drink.
Bending elbows.
Yeah, bending elbows. They're going to have a drink. So they send this out. They feel good about it. Hey, let's kill all these people. Hey, you thirsty? Let's get a drink. They go and drink while this letter goes out.
Well, it's not only confusing to the Jews, but think about all the other minorities.
Sure.
What can I do that's just going to anger the king one day? My nationality could be next.
Right, and most of them were these conquered people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so let's look at some lessons for us in all of this. So, first of all, we saw Mordecai do the right thing, but righteous actions sometimes are unrewarded. The wicked man got the praise, the promotion, the reward. Do we ever see that happen in society? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But we have to realize that righteous actions, it's the right thing to do. It's the reward is in doing it to begin with. If you're doing it because you're trying to gain something, is it still a righteous action? No. It might be the right action, but your motives are wrong. It's no longer a righteous action. Righteous actions are their own reward. Do the right thing for the right reason. But society often punishes taking righteous actions. All right? Sometimes we need courage. Even when we don't understand the motives of people or there aren't noble motives going on. Look at what was going on with Haman. There was no nobility in what he was planning to do. He was getting ready to wipe out a people. the people are confused. The Jews are confused. They don't understand what's going on. Courage is going to become a necessity in all of this. We're going to see very soon, Esther's going to demonstrate an amazing amount of courage in all of this. So sometimes we have to be courageous even if we don't know why things are happening. All right? And sometimes God may be at work even when good seems unrewarded. I would dare say, especially when good seems unrewarded. Everything at this point looks very bleak for God's people. God has raised up his people. He has led them to the promised land. He has taken them out of Egypt. He has done all these things for them. Now they've been conquered. They've been dragged up into what was Babylon, now Persia, and all of that was for nothing, right? They're just going to get wiped out. No, God's still at work. But from the perspective of the Jews at the time, this looks bleak. The king has written a decree that can't be undone. And that's a huge part of understanding how they must be feeling. This law went out. They've lived in Persia for years. They know when the king makes a law, you can't undo it. How are we going to get out of this? The king's declared it. It's going to happen. There's no undoing this. Okay, so let's get some discussion here. We got just a few minutes left of class. So, have you ever had a situation where you've done the right thing and you didn't get thanks for it, or even worse, something bad happened from it? You were punished, or somebody did something because of it. And if you have, does anyone have anything they want to share that you can share when that kind of thing has happened? The time you've done the right thing and people punished you for it. I think about a lot of the horror stories you hear of work situations where somebody talks about their faith or demonstrates their faith, and then from an employer standpoint, what happens? Many times they get fired, get written up, ostracized. All kinds of different things happen to people. The right thing to do was to live for Christ, to talk about your faith, to demonstrate your faith. But I think all of us know people. If it hasn't been you, you probably know somebody who has suffered from that kind of situation. Because the world is against Christianity. Okay? Here's a different question. Maybe somebody has something they share on this one. So, how can we show courage when our motives aren't understood? So, people might not know why we're doing things, but how can we demonstrate courage in our daily lives, in our careers? What are things it takes courage for us to do in our daily lives from a Christian perspective?
Speak up.
Speak up.
Be steadfast in what you know is the right thing, no matter who's watching. Just stick with it. Say, this is what's right. This is what we need. This is what I know I need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so you speak up.
Maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable doing that when you're closer to retirement.
Sure.
But just stand fast. Stand fast to what you know is the right thing.
Right.
To do, based on how the Lord's leading you and what you know is the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not great whenever people aren't coming with you, but
right.
You just have to go on and do it.
Right. And when you do it, aren't there people who then start trying to second guess why you're doing it? You know, you might have this idea in mind of, well, I'm standing up for Jesus, or I'm standing up for my faith, and people start talking about, oh, they're just doing that for attention. Oh, they're just, motives get called into question. And so it really doesn't matter what your motives are. You still got to be courageous. You still got to do the right thing. But people are going to accuse your motives of being different sometimes. All right, what other things does it take courage to do in our society as a Christian? So speak up, talk about your faith.
I think also admitting when you're wrong.
Admitting when you're wrong. Okay, that's huge. That's huge, admitting when you are wrong. It's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to continue insisting that I'm right when you know you're wrong. That's a hard thing to do. But that goes back to our commands to be honest in all of our dealings. If I've done the wrong thing, I need to make amends for it. I need to admit it. If I find out that I'm wrong, then I need to change my behavior. The truth is important. God is a God of truth. So if the truth becomes revealed to us and we realize I've been on the opposite side of truth, we've got to show courage and say, I'm at fault here. Who likes admitting you're wrong? Anybody? Nobody. No. It's hard to do, isn't it? It takes courage. That's a good one, all right? There's two. What else?
I think when you look at the example of Jesus, sometimes nothing has to be said. There were times that Jesus didn't give the Pharisees or the Sadducees or even the crowds around him any answers, because Jesus knew, who knows all things. He knew, doesn't matter what I say, I can't convince you otherwise, so there's no need to say anything. And so I think sometimes it takes a lot of courage just to show up, especially when you're in a space where you may not agree with everybody else, or nobody sees it the way that you do. It's not our job to convince people that Christianity is the right way. It's not our job to convince people that the Bible is true. Like, we were supposed to study with them and show them those things and show them the fruits that you can get from Christianity and what a blessed life it is. But at the end of the day, I can only teach you and show you that. You have to believe that on your own. So I think sometimes in situations where you may be misunderstood, sometimes the best thing to do is just allow your light to shine and allow your fruit to speak for themselves.
So how many times do we think about different situations that we could go into and we decide, no, I'm not going to go there, not because it's a bad place to be, and as a Christian I shouldn't be there, but because I am a Christian, I will get made fun of, or all these different things where what you're saying, we can't show our light, we can't be the example we need to be if we're hiding in a hole somewhere. Sometimes we do have to go out among the people who don't share our beliefs yet and be that light. That takes tremendous courage. We have to go out on a limb to demonstrate, here's what a godly life should be. I think it's a really good one. All right, we're almost out of time. Let's get to the last question here. So, where in your life might unseen faithfulness be shaping God's plans? So maybe you've got examples of where something was in motion from people that you know. We're out of time, but kind of what I have in mind here is like something's going on in your life, and you find out somebody at the church was doing something for you or talking about you, and good things happen in your life, and you didn't even know that faithfulness was going on and happening until there it is upon you. Somebody has done something. Yes?
Yeah, as you say, the impact of your faithfulness may not be seen today or tomorrow, it may be years.
Right.
And you may not even see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's that idea of watering seeds. All right, so I've just got the conclusion slide. I'll just put that up for those completionists who want to fill out all of your blanks. And that's where we'll wrap up tonight.